Glory!
Glory.
Glory to Arstotzkan.
Papers, Please is a 2D time management game with a branching narrative. You play as a border control agent in Arstotzkan, deciding who can stay and who has to go according to the rules. Unless you like to break them. From loyal citizen to secret rebellion member, you choose how to survive day to day. However, is being in Arstotzkan all cracked up to be? Today, I will argue how Papers, Please's strong theme of nationalism contributes to the game's depiction of violence, safety, and identity. Specifically, how people treat the player and their attitudes towards him as an Arstotzkan versus his attitude towards them. I will be using two of the main gameplay routes as my examples, the good and evil routes. So, spoilers ahead. You've been warned. Let's dive in. At first glance, it is quite obvious where Papers, Please took inspiration from its world building and atmosphere: Eastern Europe. More specifically, Russia and the Slavic countries surrounding it. Some similar maps to not so subtle hints of communism. There are several similarities to be drawn between Arstotzkan's Europe and the real world's Eastern Europe. Even the hats seen throughout the game, a papaka, are worn in real life by generals and colonels in the Russian army. And while these similarities are harmless, this isn't.
You try make fool of Sean. You try make fool of Glory Greatest. But I know fool. I know what's best for my country.
I have waited in this damn line since for 8 hours. I hope it was worth it.
Yurko City. Da. Male. Okay, sure. Lachman. Stefan Lachman. Healthcare. Okay, Stefan. I think everything.
Even though there are no distinguishable voices throughout the game, players automatically default to reading the text bubbles in a Russian accent. It may seem funny or immersive at first, but deep down, it is a result of how the game's stereotyping works to influence players' attitudes towards the game's content. Let's return to the map comparison from earlier. The game's map clearly shows that Arstotzkan represents Russia, with the other fictional countries surrounding it representing their real-world Slavic counterparts. But how can we know for sure that Arstotzkan is like Russia? From the start of the game, the player is given obvious clues as to what type of country Arstotzkan is, especially with the Labor Lottery logo looking very similar to the symbol for communism. The checkpoint the player is stationed at has high security, more specifically, armed military security. While you are working, you get occasional pop-up check-ins from the inspector, who lets you know he is watching you closely. These different routes set up the basis for Paper Please's cybertyping. Cybertyping is a term coined by Lisa Nakamura, who is quoted in Malkowski and Russworm's paper, Introduction, Identity, Representation, and Video Game Studies Beyond the Politics of the Image. She thinks of cybertyping as a more applicable term than stereotyping, to thinking about the cultural layer or ideologies regarding race that are evident in the complex relays between people and machines. The concept retains promising potential for moving the discursive focus on representation in video games beyond the surface politics of the image. Nakamura also argues that the digital and media formats are themselves bumpy, layered, and pitted with the imprint of contact with other cultures. None avoid the mark of imperialist power relations. Cybertyping really comes into play with how Arstotzkan interacts with other countries, which mirrors the relationship Russia has with its Slavic neighbors. As seen with this video's intro, the phrase "Glory to Arstotzkan" is grounded in everything the player does. It's said to the border patrol agent by those coming through. It's written in the daily memos. The phrase is so ingrained in your mind to show that Arstotzkan is the only country that matters. Bring glory to us. Even when non-citizens pass through, sometimes the border agent will say something along the lines of "Don't bring shame to Arstotzkan." Then, there are certain days when only Arstotzkans are allowed entry. The first case of this happening is the very first day of the game. Then, there are other days when citizens from specific countries are denied entry or targeted for inspections, usually due to some event that happened at the checkpoint or in their country that offended Arstotzkan. For example, if there's a terrorist attack at the border, the next day, no Galicians will be allowed entry. All these examples showcase how Arstotzkan is the ominous, watching eye over not only the player, but everyone. If you or another country do something to piss off Arstotzkan, you will be targeted next. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Another aspect that plays into the attitude of the Border Patrol agent and others towards himself and Arstotzkan is through the core gameplay loop of Papers, Please. Check documents, call out discrepancies, deny or allow entry. While Papers, Please is far from being categorized as a casual game, its time management plays a key role in giving off a communist impression of labor. Each day, you have from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. to get as many people through the border checkpoint without getting too many citations. Each person processed through the checkpoint is equal to 5 credits. Every couple of days, depending on whether there's a major event at the border or in the newspaper, there are new documents and procedures to follow, which can get confusing and overwhelmed with the little desk space that you have. This can often lead to mistakes, which give you citations. Your first 2 are warnings, but every citation after that deducts 5 credits from your total for the day. And then you repeat this loop every day, again and again and again. It's meticulous, draining, and barely rewarding. On top of managing people at the border, you also have to manage your money earned. The money used after each shift is allotted to your rent, heat, and food. But if you do not have enough money or decide to not pay for heat or food, then things get risky. If you don't pay for heat, your family members get sick and then need medicine, another additional cost out of your measly paycheck. If you don't pay for food, then your family goes hungry. If the player keeps depriving their family of food or heat, then eventually they will start to die off. You could take bribes from people who try to get past the checkpoint with incorrect documentation, but is it worth the risk? You could also take the big 1,000 credit bribe from EZIC to support your family and move up a housing class. However, that will get you arrested shortly after. The constraints and urgency of this time-intensive labor force the player to make a decision. Do your job diligently and hope you can make enough to survive, or break the rules and face the monetary consequences of doing the right thing. This plays into the idea of la périque, which is mentioned in Aubrey Anable's paper Casual Games, Time Management, and the Work of Effect. Anable mentions Michael de Certeau's la périque theory and how Michael de Certeau's example of la périque offers us a way to think about casual games as a tactical response to our conditions of labor. Literally meaning wig, la périque is the worker's own work disguised as work for his employer. La périque can be seen in Papers, Please through the actions of the Border Patrol agent, since some of the actions you take can be seen as antagonistic to capitalism uses of the worker and as tactic for workers to preserve a portion of their labor values for themselves. Consider the normal route where the player follows all the rules to a T and acts like a true Arstotzkan. While performing your duties correctly does earn you more money, it elicits more complaints and threats from people who cannot get in or see the Border Patrol agent as a tool. However, the player is seen as loyal to Arstotzkan and does not have to worry when the inspector comes at the end of the game to investigate your actions. Yet, there is no reward for doing your job. As an Arstotzkan, that's expected of you. On top of all that, there is a secret rebellion in the country, EZIC, that tries to get its agents through the border. So, not only is the player responsible for doing their job correctly, but they're also responsible for either obeying the law or becoming accomplices to EZIC. In contrast, the EZIC rebellion route is where La Périque shines. Due to several citations, you may earn less than the normal route, and it will be harder to pay your bills, but you are doing something good. Instead of being a tool for Arstotzkan, you are helping tear the country down from the inside. The people you would usually turn away in the normal route thank you and wish you luck instead of throwing insults. You let EZIC agents in, help families reunite, and bring glory to yourself. Yet, your actions bring more attention from the inspector, and you can easily get arrested if you make a wrong move. The rebellion route is harder and riskier, but rewards the player at the end with Arstotzkan being freed from its corrupt leaders. You, the player, decide what type of border control agent you want to be. A corrupt, loyal Arstotzkan, a rebellious freedom fighter, or a dude who's just trying to get through to the next day. It is the player's decision whether they feed into the stereotypes and labor the game represents or fight back and defy the norm. Thanks so much for watching.